And Towels has the copy of the presentation that includes the links and all of that fun stuff that you all can use and take a look at. And I always give the disclaimer when I do any presentations about resources. I'm just one person, and the Commission on Aging and Disability is just a very small agency. We do a lot of searching and looking for resources, but there is no way in one presentation of a little less than an hour that we could cover every resource that could potentially be available to elders and vulnerable adults who need them, okay? So I always say this, if your agency is not mentioned, it is no personal affront to anyone. It is not intentional. It is the oversight of the presenter, and please direct all blame to the presenter. Let me know. You can send me an email. We can always add people. We can add resources to this presentation, and I have since I gave it last time, but just let me know, okay? So it's not personal, promise. Didn't leave you off for just because we wanted to. Okay, so resources, you all do handle the legal aspect, but you also probably run across clients every single day who have a number of issues and a number of problems, right? And not all of them are legal. A lot of them are, or they wouldn't be seeing you guys. But then you have somebody who needs a floor repaired, or their roof is leaking, or, you know, just keep going and going and going and going. They need caregiving services, or they need meals. So this is just kind of an introduction on some places to look and some referral sources to send people to if you're looking for referrals. All right. Again, like we did this morning, jump in with any questions, comments, concerns. Let's not wait till the end, and we'll see how quickly we can get through this and get you all out of here. All right, resources, the big question, where do we find them? Who do we send them to? Is there a one number that we can send folks to get access to every resource for seniors and vulnerable, that seniors and vulnerable adults are eligible for? And unfortunately, the answer is no. We don't have in the state of Tennessee one single point of entry for all state government benefits or even state and nonprofit benefits. We are getting close in some cases to our area agencies. They offer a lot of services, but by no means are the services that the area agencies offer completely comprehensive, okay? All right, so big question. Standing on the mountain, feel like this a lot of times. All right, so many questions. What resources exist, who qualifies, how to access these resources. All right, so some answers are on the next exit. So let's talk about, so remember I work for the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, right? I am what's called the designated state unit on aging. Every state has one, and what that means is just a fancy term to say that we receive a lot of funding through the Older Americans Act to fund a lot of different programs, including the Title IIIB legal program, legal assistance program, which you all are pretty familiar with, and meals and things along those lines. So it means I get lots of federal money. About 2/3 of our budget is federal money. The remaining 1/3 is state funding. Okay, we have a budget of about $42 million throughout the course of the year. We are not adult protective services. We are not Medicaid, so we're not TennCare. We are not Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. We are not intellectual and developmental disabilities. We're not DIDS. We are what's considered the advocacy agency for elders and vulnerable adults, those with disabilities. And we receive the Older Americans Act funding and distribute it throughout the state through our 9 area agencies on aging and disability. Have you all heard about the AAADs or the area agencies on aging and disability? Yes, okay, good. I see some head shakes and some thumbs up, great. Sometimes I present to folks and they're like, nope, never heard of them. And I'm like, We've been around since 1963, and it's really sad that no one's heard of the area agencies because they're kind of supposed to be the local community organizations. They're quasi-governmental entities that help folks access benefits and resources. All right, so there is one phone number for these AAADs, and there are 9 of them. So we start up in Upper East Tennessee, where actually I'm supposed to be today, but I'm here with you instead. I'm supposed to be in Johnson City for a presentation, but we kind of switched that around and I'm here instead. But we started Upper East Tennessee and Johnson City, and we go all the way to West Tennessee with District Number 9, which is in Memphis-Shelby County and the surrounding 3 counties. We have 95 counties. We have 9 area agencies. I wish we could say that each area agency covers 9 or so counties, but that's not true. We have our largest area agency covers 16 counties, and that is our area agency located in the Knoxville area and the surrounding areas. If you look at it, that is a huge geographical area to cover. But anyway, one number, if you call the 1-866-836-6678 number, It is key to your area code, and it is key to where you're at, and you will be rolled automatically to the correct AAAD that you need to talk to. Okay? If it doesn't work, let us know. We have worked on this long and hard, and since 1963, to make this work and to make sure that everyone's able to call one number and access the area agency in their particular area. Okay? We right now are in the area agency known as the Greater Nashville Regional Council. They are here in Davidson, and they cover, I think, 12 or 13 other counties as well in Middle Tennessee. Some of you, does everybody know which area agency they're in? Yes? West Tennessee. You guys are in Martin and Jackson. So you're in Northwest and Southwest region, so you guys have got that covered and know that. So you know Shelley and you know Susan. Anybody else?
South Central.
South Central, he knows where he's at. So out there in Columbia or Mount Pleasant. Anybody else? Any questions about which area agency you're in? East Tennessee, you guys are in a whole bunch of, you know exactly, David knows where he's at. So you've got Southeast. And then some of your counties are also probably in Upper Cumberland a little bit, and some of your counties are going to be in East Tennessee Human Resource Agency or ETHRA as well.
So we can put those map cards that you have at everybody's back to EJU.
You
That's
can.
great. That's how we.
And I don't have one up here. That's awful on my part. Oh, can I borrow that for just a second? Okay, I'm going off camera. Sorry. This is going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's these handy dandy little cards, and I should have brought a bunch of them, but I didn't, and I'm really sorry. And it's a color-coded map that gives you the contact information for your area agency, and it tells you what counties are covered by that area agency and their direct number. If you don't want to call the 1-866 number, there's an actual direct number to the receptionist at that area agency. Okay. And then, yes, on the other side, we've listed some of the services, but on the other side of this little push card that we hand out by the thousands, there are some of the services listed that these area agencies are the entry point for. So the first one is options for community living, and we'll go into a little more detail about what that is on another slide. Public guardianship program, long-term care ombudsman, nutrition services, that's both home delivered meals and congregate meals. We served about 2 million meals last year. So they have a huge nutrition program if you think about it. Caregiver support, and we'll talk a little bit about what services are available there. Tennessee SHIP for all of your Medicare questions. Senior centers, we fund at last count about 133 senior centers throughout the state of Tennessee. There are more than that in the state, but we fund about 133 of them. TennCare Choices. A lot of folks don't know that the AAADs are actually the single point of entry for folks who are in the community seeking to get on TennCare Choices and get into a nursing home. So those AAADs will actually do the PAE, which you all learned about, the pre-admission evaluation, and help individuals with those applications. And then the Title III legal assistance program. So that's just an overview. We're going to talk in more detail about what those resources are and who might qualify for them. All right, so Medicare questions. I always say if you have a Medicare question, you've had lots of Medicare training, but they are like with Medicaid, there are these little exceptions and these little minute rules that change sometimes. We always point folks to the SHIP program. That is operated through the area agencies in all 9 areas, and their number is slightly different. Even though you can reach them by calling the 1-866 number, they have to be special and different, and they have their own toll-free number as well. And it's there on the screen, and like I said, you all will get a copy of this as well. They can help with folks with any type of Medicare questions, Medicare planning. We can run Part D drug comparisons for folks, which is a really valuable thing to do when folks are trying to talk about changing their plans and they need to know which drug plan to use and which one to stay away from. This program doesn't sell anything, so their information is non-biased, and it doesn't matter to us if you pick plan A over plan B. It's just whatever works out best for the individual. All right, so any questions about that? Oh, and another good benefit of this program is they do a lot of community outreach, and they will meet one-on-one with folks. So if you have somebody who really has a difficult question about Medicare, the SHIP folks in your area agency will come out, or the individuals can go to the area agency and meet one-on-one with a trained counselor. Okay. All right, and the Medicare cards have changed. Ignore that. That's old. Options for community living. This is what we sometimes refer to as the alternative to choices. And it is for folks who do not qualify for choices. It is a state-funded program, again, operated through your local area agency on aging and disability, that provides homemaker and personal care services to help folks remain in their homes. In some areas, we also do some minor home modifications if people need something minor to stay within their homes. Like we've done some grab bars. I think particularly out in West Tennessee, they do more home modifications than others, and that just kind of varies by the area agency. To be eligible, the individual must be a Tennessee resident, 18 years of age or older. So it does, people who have disabilities do qualify for this program. Not all the programs that we have through the area agencies are available to folks with disabilities. The options program is, and last time we checked, about a third or slightly more of our clients are adults with disabilities. So not just seniors. And must meet, we have some requirements on ADLs and IADLs for folks to qualify. The only problem with this is, I'm sure as you're quite aware, is that folks are getting, living longer, and the need for this program is exponentially higher than we're able to meet, which means that in some areas we do have a waiting list, unfortunately. Not in all areas, but in some areas there is a waiting list. Maybe in East Tennessee, maybe Ethra, either has a very short waiting list or a non-existent waiting list, but just about every other area is going to have a waiting list. But we still tell folks to go ahead and call and get your clients assessed for it if they think they might use it, because it is, your position on the waiting list is based on your acuity and your needs. So if you don't have a lot of needs, you're probably going to be low. You will be lower on the list, but if you do have a lot of needs, you should raise higher on the list and get on. We did get $1 million in extra funding for this program during the last legislative session. So that is opening up some more slots. So, go ahead and encourage folks to call their area agency and ask about this program if they have a question. Any questions about that? We do have a cap. It's fairly high, but it does really help a lot of folks stay in their home. So it's a really, really useful program.
What is the cap?
So it depends. It ranges from $3,500 up to about $7,000 per year per client per year. But the average is around $3,500. Caregivers. So we're seeing lots and lots of folks with questions about caregiving. They're either giving care to someone in their home, an adult with disabilities, or an elder. There is, again, through the area agencies, you're able to access services through the National Family Caregiver Support Program, which is a federally funded program that we also have a grant for, that provides counseling, support groups, training, and also respite care. We do respite care vouchers, which come in very, very handy if folks are taking care of an elder and they want to go on vacation or they just need a break. So if you have someone who calls you with that particular issue, I would definitely refer them to their area agency, as well as the Tennessee Respite Coalition. We just received a grant that in partnership with the Tennessee Respite Coalition for even more vouchers for respite care. And I know at times those vouchers go unused. So I think maybe it's a case of folks just not knowing that it exists. But I would definitely urge you, if you have a client or you have family members of one of your clients who really, really, really need a break, by all means, tell them to call and talk through the program and the application process. It's not really onerous. The application's not too bad, and it can provide that much needed break for folks. All right. And that again is a statewide number. The statewide respite hotline is a statewide number. There are support groups that are funded by both the Tennessee Respite Coalition and the National Family Caregiver Support Program. So if you have folks that just don't know what to do or how to handle elders that maybe are going through Alzheimer's or dementia, you can also, there are resources for families through both of these programs. Long-Term Care Ombudsman, we've mentioned them briefly this morning, but they're the organization that goes into licensed long-term care facilities to address quality of care issues and basically serve as advocates for folks that are residents or seeking to become residents of long-term care facilities. It is a federally funded program, and they have to be different as well. I can say that because I was the ombudsman for a couple of years. But we have our own 1877 number. You can also access the ombudsman through your the 1866 number. In some cases, though, the ombudsman is not through the area agency. So I would, if you're looking for the Ombudsman, I would probably try their 877 number first. And it's key, just like the AAAD number, to roll over to the particular area you're in. If you're calling from an out-of-state area code, it rolls over to the state. So we get it on the state level. We get those calls. But in some areas, like I said, the Ombudsman are not through the area agency. Most areas they still are, but West Tennessee, in Memphis, you're not through the Ombudsman, you're not through the area agency, you're not in Martin. And who else? I'm missing somebody. Oh, Southwest is, yep, so East Tennessee is still both, yes, thank you. First Tennessee, yeah, upper East Tennessee, they're provided through Legal Aid of East Tennessee. Yep, so 3. That seems to be a trend, so we'll see what happens.
Do the
Yes, sir.
Ombudsman authorized to bring, whether it's administrative or judicial litigation against boarding homes, nursing homes, etc., that are not complying with standards?
That is a very good question. So the question is, are the Ombudsman entitled to bring some type of judicial action against facilities that aren't complying with their licensing regulations, basically?
Or administrative.
Or administrative, yes. So when I came on board as the state ombudsman, we had ombudsmen that were sort of acting as attorneys and judges and all kinds of things. So we've had to pull that back and make sure that they're acting within the scope of their federal regulations, which says that they are to be advocates, and we are to refer folks to legal aids and to other sources of legal help for those types of administrative and judicial proceedings. Like the ombudsman don't represent people in appeal hearings. If there's an involuntary discharge and there's an appeal of that, the ombudsman won't represent them. They could be there as support for the individual, but we let legal aids and Title IIIB attorneys do that. Another thing to keep in mind, ombudsmen are not regulatory. So the ones that would be bringing judicial actions against the actual facility would be the Department of Health facilities licensure. They're the ones that can take action against that facility's license to operate. The ombudsman cannot. The ombudsman can only assign fees or assign penalties in one particular case, and that's if there's retaliation by the facility against a resident for seeking the services of the ombudsman. So, like I said, they're advocates. They're not regulatory. They're not going to be able to go against a facility's license. But it doesn't mean we're not going to pick up the phone and call the Department of Health and be like, hey, there's a problem. And usually when the ombudsman do that, the relationship has really improved between the ombudsman and the Department of Health over the past 5 years, which has resulted in some facilities receiving what's called an immediate jeopardy for doing things improperly. And actually, we've had a couple of facilities shut down because they continued to discharge folks by sending them to hospitals and not taking them back and doing things like that. So does that kind of answer your question in a long roundabout way? Yes, sir.
So if we have a client or a relative who has complaints about conditions, in addition to the ombudsman, is there someone in particular, how would they make a complaint to the Department of Health?
So the Department of Health Facilities Licensure has their own complaint line. The ombudsman typically will call that if they receive a complaint that also deals with a facility licensure. I think I have it in this presentation. If not, I'll make sure that you all have that number. Okay, they have an intake, sort of like Adult Protective Services. They have a complaint line that you can call and lodge that complaint. I will say though that we're seeing those complaints. It's taken the Department of Health about 6 months to act on some complaints. So if you have an immediate need, always call the ombudsman first. They're a little more nimble and a little more mobile and can get out to see folks much more quickly. And if they determine when they get out there, the Department of Health needs to be there right then they will call their local administrator, Department of Health Facilities Licensure Administrator in that area to try and get some immediate action. So, good questions. Anything else about that? All right. I put this one in here because this is a brand new program from the Commission on Aging and Disability, and it is called the CREVA program, which we're kind of at the top, but it's Collaborative Response to Elder and Vulnerable Adult Abuse, or CREVA, and it provides direct services to folks who have been victims of crime. Right? So if you have an elder, again, defined as 60 and over, or a vulnerable adult, 18 to 59 with a mental or physical disability, and they have been the victim of a crime, we have a pool of money to provide direct services to that individual. This program works very, very closely with Adult Protective Services, because remember, Adult Protective Services does the investigation, but they don't have a lot of money for services. So we're kind of walking hand in hand in parallel with Adult Protective Services to provide direct services to individuals. It's a brand new program. It rolled out in 3 areas of the state in March, and it is now active in all areas of the state. The last program was our program in Memphis, and it came on board last week, actually. And you can access that program again by calling that 866 number. Referrals go to the program through a number of different sources. If you're on a VAPIT team, you can absolutely send a referral over, or you can call Adult Protective Services and they'll get you connected with CREPA.
What are the services?
Okay, so the list of services is very long and not exhaustive because we've done all kinds of really creative things. We have to have an eligible client, we have to have a need that arose out of a crime, and then we can do things like we can provide food, we can provide clothing, we can make repairs to a home if the home was damaged as a result of a crime. We've had victims that were neglected and covered in bed bugs, and they needed to have that treated in order to move to a group home to a safer location. We were able to do that. What else? We can provide emergency housing. We can provide durable medical equipment that's been lost or damaged as a result of a crime. We can, it's a pretty long list. It's a lot of direct services. We can do homemaker services and personal care services if they're needed because of a crime. We can replace some medications that are needed because of a crime. It's pretty extensive.
Can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
The ones in Hamilton County, this program actually paid a month of rent for one of my clients who was being evicted because she was a victim of domestic violence, and her husband was supposed to pay some temporary alimony and
He did not.
So she was getting evicted, and the folks there referred her to me because I had contacted with them earlier, and I was able to represent her in the eviction, and they caught up the back month's rent, so she was able to remain in her home.
Yes, and that's a great example. So on all the emergency housing, all of the advocates have to come through TCAD. So I remember that one really, really well. It was a great example. Another one is we had a vulnerable adult, and Rachel's not here anymore, in Upper Cumberland, who was basically abandoned. His mother had died, who was his caregiver. He had an intellectual disability. The mother's boyfriend kept the house and basically put him out on the doorstep, changed the locks with the clothes on his back. So we were able to get him in an assisted living for 2 weeks, and again, working closely with Adult Protective Services until his power of attorney, which is his brother, who lives in Colorado, was able to come down, and they were able to go back, and he's now in Colorado. We followed up with him. He seems to be doing really, really well and is really, really happy. So, there's some really good stories of what we've been able to do with this program in the few short months it's been available. Yes, sir.
How are y'all defining crime for this program, and how related does it have to be to crime to use this service?
Okay, so remember that most of my advocates are social workers at heart, right? So the definition of crime is very, very broad. And remember, I don't have to have a verified crime, just have to have an allegation that a crime occurred. So I have to have an allegation that someone was financially exploited. We've had a situation in Davidson County recently where an elder was taken to the hospital and left by her family because they no longer wanted to care for her. So in our definition of a crime, abandonment is a crime. And we were able to provide emergency housing for her. And then we'll talk about the second component of this program, which is case management. We get the folks on long-term services that they need.
It's FOCA funded, right?
It is FOCA funded.
So if you have a FOCA grant, you legal name the parameters of a crime and whether it's tied to the crime are very similar to what we deal with in legal aid.
Yes, very similar, except we actually, and we are very creative and have been given some liberties to be creative as to what's tied to the crime. We have to have the need has to have arisen, just like any other FOCA funded, from the crime, but neglect. So someone was neglected by their caregiver to an extent where they got bed bugs. We were able to pay for the bed bug eradication procedures, which I understand are very onerous. So we're pretty, we think outside the box. We never just look at, oh, we can't do that. We really, really, really try to help these folks get this pool of money. Yes, sir.
So for those of us who've been dealing with criminal injury compensation,
yes,
this is considerably less restrictive.
Yes, criminal. So we have
I think
to.
a lot of us are probably thinking.
Yeah, we know all about the criminal injury because we had to sit through the 4-hour training too. And I've sat through it twice now. So anyway, it's kind of a funny story how that happened. So that's dealing, as far as I remember, with violent crimes. We have to give that brochure to all of our clients, as I know a lot of you who have the grants have to as well. Very few of our clients, I won't say none, but maybe 1 out of 150 of our clients will ever qualify for that. We give them the information, but we are not nearly that restrictive. We are much more creative in figuring out what's tied to the crime. And also the case management part that I talked about. We provide direct services and we do case management. So if we go into a home and do a face-to-face assessment, which we're required to do for each client, and we notice that the house is in a mess, it's a wreck, they need some home repairs, they need a new roof, we will refer them to those services, okay? We can't always make sure they receive those services, but we will get them on that path to getting those services in place in their home. Emergency housing. We can only pay for a limited amount of emergency housing, right? We're emergency services, but we will try to get them on choices. We will try to get them in some other type of housing that is income-based, where it's a long-term solution. Our goal is the long-term. Okay, we're here to help in the interim, get them all stable, and then get them to the long-term. So any other questions about this one? It's now active all across the state, so it's available to every single person that's eligible in all 95 counties. And we're one of the first states in the union to actually have this type of program that's completely focused on elders and vulnerable adults. It's a new federal trend, and our Office of Criminal Justice Programs here in Tennessee decided to get on that bandwagon early. It's been about a year in the making from idea to contract to getting everything together, but we're well underway. Yes, sir.
Is there information that can be pulled from either the website or their pamphlets or the things that
so folks can't self-refer, so we have to be careful about what kind of marketing we do, but I will make sure that I will email to Ann a fact sheet that gives you all the details of the program and how to contact the advocates, and the map with all the advocates that can be uploaded to the Dropbox. So you all have access to that. All right, so we're pretty excited about it. It is a 3-year grant, and it is about a $5 million grant. So when I say we have money for services, we do have money for services. We're at the point now where we haven't spent it all. So, send people over. Please send them over. And we hope that it extends, obviously, after the 3 years, but we'll see. We shall see. All right, 3B legal assistance. I don't need to tell you guys that. It's just a slide that's a relic from other presentations that I've done. It provides legal services to folks age 60 and over who have the greatest social and economic need. You all have heard that before. It is a statewide program. You can access it through your area agency on aging and disability. In every area but Upper Cumberland, it is contracted through a legal aid. So Upper Cumberland is the only kind of outlier, and Knoxville, but we won't talk about Knoxville. It's a little bit of an outlier too. Those of you that are in those areas know all about that. All right, senior legal helpline, sorry. If you have someone that wants to talk to a Tennessee licensed attorney, you can always send them to the 1-844-HELP-for-TN, press option 2, and they can talk to a licensed attorney. I understand more attorneys have been hired, so we're ready to totally start advertising this, the availability of this resource. You can send your folks there if they have questions that, what is Medicaid and what is Medicare? How do I qualify for Medicaid? That way you guys are doing the 3B work and senior trust work. Sorry, I'm kind of probably overstepping here. We'll forget that I say senior trust, but those general types of questions that can be answered over the phone, this is a great resource. Fantastic resource. Because I know a lot of you guys that are doing Title 3B spend an awful lot of time on the phone answering just, general questions about, well, this happened and my landlord did this or my landlord did that. These guys have lots of training. They have lots of senior law training, specialized training, and they are fantastic and awesome and wonderful. So send them on over.
And they're in the room.
And they're in the room. Some of them are. Yes, and I keep getting glowing reports, and I haven't shared all of the glowing reports with Ann yet, about how wonderfully well the senior legal helpline attorneys are doing. So I just got a new one, told Tim about it. I'm gonna try and send it over if I could cut out some of the identifying information and stuff. So this was funded through a federal grant. The grant will end, unfortunately, in 2019, but we are looking for additional sources of funding for this, and I think we're gonna be able to find them. Because they're taking, close to 200 calls a month?
Just for the senior portion.
Just for the senior portion. Yeah, this is folks 60 and over, folks with senior questions. So, and that's with no advertising whatsoever. Yes, sir.
That number applies to both regular
under 60 and
Correct.
so when they call, it'll say, if you're over 60, hit 9.
Is it 9? I'm sorry, I think I said 2.
Hit 2 for
Oh.
under 60
Okay.
and hit 9 to talk to an older guy.
Or young lady.
Or a young lady, yes. And there's one more, it's like sort of in the middle between the two of you, yes. Yes, but we're really, really, really excited that Tennessee now has a dedicated senior legal helpline, and we really want to see that continue. That started late last year and kind of has been doing really, really well and helping people in very rural counties, because Taos is awesome, and they send me reports that tell me which counties have called in about this particular line, and I'm always really, really excited when I see like Lake County show up and Obion County and all those little smaller counties, and Sullivan County, not smaller, but just a little more remote. All right, any questions about that? We're running out of time. Okay, public guardianship. Matt did a really good job of talking about guardianship earlier today. Just know that there is a public guardianship program that is available for folks age 60 and over who don't have anyone else to serve as their guardian. I know the language says guardian. Again, you know, drafters sometimes don't of legislation, and things that become state statute aren't always careful about their wording. We do call it the public guardianship program because that's what it's called in the statute. We know in Tennessee, guardianship is usually under age 18. In Tennessee, public guardianship is for 60 and over. Sorry. They're technically conservators, but the statute calls them public guardians, so that's what we have to use. Yes.
You all serve, or this group program serves as a guardian or conservator. You all know this program doesn't provide or prepare the documents for the court.
That is a very good point. Thank you so much for bringing it up. So it is sort of a conflict of interest for a guardianship program to file the initial petition seeking to become someone's guardian or conservator, right? And that's the same problem this program has. We cannot file that initial petition. I've got to have somebody else file it and ask that the public guardian in the area be appointed as that person's guardian. Okay, so again, it's run by the area agencies. There are 10 public guardians now. We have 2 in Upper Cumberland, and the rest of the areas have 1, but you can access that program through that 866 number. And let me tell you something, hang on one second. If you call them and say you want an application, an intake form for public guardianship, they should send it to you. If they say they cannot take any more clients, I need to know. None of the programs are under a cap. None of the programs are under a cap. The local programs like to say, we don't have the capability, we can't do it. Statutorily, unless they have a cap that TCAT has approved, they have to take clients. Period.
Also, for Asian Commission of Mid-South, it's just from a practice standpoint, they always prefer that we, private attorneys or any attorney who's going to file a petition, actually send them the application ahead of time.
It's very helpful.
And the judges like for them to already have tentatively accepted appointments prior to going to court.
Yeah. It's very helpful because that way the public guardianship program knows that they need to be in court on a certain day. We have had situations where people have filed initial petitions seeking the appointment of the public guardian, and we never know until that hearing date comes and goes, and we get a letter in the mail saying, oh, by the way, you've been appointed. All right, Ashley, and then Matt.
They can act as agents under POAs too, and as a healthcare agent.
Very good
They use
point.
that a lot in our area, and it's very helpful.
Yes, very good point. They can, their statute says that we have to take the least restrictive means available. So that means that in some cases, our public guardians, if someone still has capacity, as Matt talked to us about, to grant powers under a power of attorney, the public guardians can be that attorney in fact for someone. Okay, it'll be a durable power of attorney. I'm just telling you straight up. We're going to be upfront about that, but we can do that. There's not as many power of attorney clients because our public guardians tend to not stop, not to. There might be some backstories there. Not want to take those particular clients because they can be a little more difficult, right? Because power of attorney clients can, they can make their own decisions, and sometimes they're not good decisions. And then you have a public guardian who's like, no, don't do that, but they do it anyway, and it's just it gets to sometimes it rises to the state level, and we kind of get involved and help a little bit. But we can accept those, and in most cases it works beautifully. And yes.
I was going to say the exact same.
Okay. Yes.
And so if we need to amend, like if someone passed or whatever, you think we can amend and get this put on as well?
You can.
Okay.
Yes. there's that intake form that they really, really like to get before you all start putting them in documents, just to make sure that they don't have a cap,
No,
but
it's not true.
yes.
We
Yep.
have one who can't find anybody.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
They still have that capacity, absolutely. All right, so any other questions about this program? We have about 400 to 450 clients under this program right now, so it kind of varies. Our clients are, our client list is always changing because our folks are usually some of the, the most ill individuals, and, sometimes they're not with us a long time. But then we have clients that are with us for 20 years, so who knows?
And it doesn't include, say, only elderly.
So it can be an elderly disabled person, but our bright line is that 60 and above. Yeah. There is some talk about changing the age. We actually tried to change the age this legislative session, but that just didn't work out so very well. So we pulled that legislation, and we'll bring it back probably next year to expand the age to 40. We'd be able to take people from 40 on, which would be a huge help, at least from our perspective. But the disability community didn't view it that way. So we've got some conversations. Money is another issue. This program has been around since 1986, something like that. And we've not received any increases in funding since the institution of the program. So you all know how much prices have changed since 1986, right? So $1 million in 1986 was probably a lot of money, but we're still getting $1.1 million a year for this program. And we have to provide the same level of service and the same level of staffing and all that fun stuff.
For a ward who is,
Yes, sir.
has money, is the public guardian able to get a fee?
Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely, yes. Under the statute, we are not able to charge folks under our statute that are on SSI or considered indigent. But if they do have assets, and we have courts that appoint us for people who have assets, we are able to charge a fee. It's a sliding scale fee, and it's the public guardians have that. It's always going to be less than a private conservator would charge. I think we'd max out at like $76 an hour. We just looked the other day, though, 78% of our clients are on Medicaid, and we don't charge them any fees. So we have very, very, very few fee-paying clients. Yes, sir.
Where a public guardian is involved, how do the courts handle fees for guardian ad litem's?
So sometimes they have assets. Sometimes the clients come in with a few assets that need to be spent down. That's how I see it handled a lot of times. And then other times they're just not paid. And like I said this morning, that is an issue that we're bringing up a whole bunch of issues with our administrative office of the courts, and that's one of them. So we understand that's a problem. We understand it's an issue. Can't promise any changes, but we are bringing it to the attention of the folks who can make the changes. The courts and the judges and the administrative office of the courts really like this program because they don't, at times you have chancellors and judges who don't have anywhere else to turn, so they'll just appoint these folks who will come in and serve as guardians. Yes, sir.
But so the courts aren't saying to the petitioner, you've got to pay for the guardian ad litem.
Yes.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, I keep saying this, but it depends on the areas. In some of the more urban areas, they're saying, yep, you got to do it. In some other areas, they're not.
It also
Yes.
depends on the facts.
It depends on the facts. Yeah, it's very case specific.
If it's pretty obvious that it's a sibling fight over mama,
They will assign them
of course.
in a heartbeat. Right. And we really do have a lot of that. We have people fighting over elders. It usually happens when there's money involved, but I've seen it happen when there's no money involved, right? And the judges just don't know what to do. Like, so we're gonna stop this. We're gonna appoint someone who's neutral and a third party, and then that puts our public guardian in the middle of it, and we get to set up things like, supervised visitation and things like that in nursing homes. Might be speaking from experience there. All right, so any other questions about that particular program? It's a useful program. There are no waiting lists for this program, and there are no caps. TCAT has to approve the cap, contrary to what your public guardian may have told you. Find a senior center, you will get a copy of this document, and there's several resources to actually find a senior center if you have someone who's interested in congregate meals. A lot of our senior centers serve congregate meals during the week. A lot of times it's lunch, sometimes it's breakfast, it varies. But if they're looking for that social activity and that social component of life, you can always refer them here. Yes, sir.
What's the administrative or supervisory relationship between the AAADs and local senior centers?
So if the AAAD funds the senior center, the Commission on Aging and Disability has a set of policies and procedures that have to be followed. So the area agency is not sitting there, on a daily basis, kind of overseeing that AAAD is not overseeing that senior center on a daily basis, but there is monitoring to ensure contract compliance and the like. I'm not really sure what you mean by what the relationship. It's a contractual relationship. We will contract with area agencies.
Require the senior center director?
Not usually. That's usually a board.
About a senior center, go to the AAAD about it?
Yes, you can. If the senior center funds it, if there's a complaint, you can definitely go to the AAAD about it. Most senior centers are either 501c3s or they're administratively attached to local or county government. And they generally have a board that will hire and fire the director.
And this list will tell us which ones are funded?
Not necessarily. Yeah, it won't necessarily tell you which ones are 501c3s and which ones are through city, county government. But you can always ask me and I can definitely help you find that information. Yes.
Question I'm fast forwarded about the Office of Public Guardian.
Yes.
Is it true as a policy that they will not, my question is twofold. First one is, will not serve as co-conservators with anyone else? And then the second question is that they will either serve as conservative of the person and estate, or conservative of the estate, but not conservative of the person?
Okay, so a question with a long answer. The first one, will the public guardianship program serve as a co-conservator with someone else? We don't, the public program does not like to do that. We have gotten into situations more times than not, it's not worked out when you have two people who have to make decisions. With that being said, there are several that are enforced all across the state of Tennessee right now. I just don't think we're entering into any new ones where we're co-conservators. If we're going to be conservator, we just need to be conservator. If there's a co-conservator, why can't you give it to that other person, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't have situations daily where we serve as conservator of the person and someone else serves as conservator of the estate, or vice versa. Okay, so not co-conservators, but conservators of different elements, if you want to say it that way.
See, I always thought that you couldn't, I guess I had it backwards. I thought that, well, maybe they just don't want to, maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, so the public guardianship program has kind of done its own thing for a lot of years. We have one guardians coordinator at the state level who they got really comfortable and, change wasn't, we were saying, you need to make some changes and she didn't really want to implement them. We've now, we have a new coordinator and we're working really hard to ensure that the guardianship programs are following the statute all across the state and it's consistent. So thank you for bringing that up. That's one issue I need to touch on. And we can accept guardianship of the person or guardianship of the estate. It just depends on what the court deems necessary.
For both?
We can do both as well. Yep, we can be guardians over everything. We can have sort of a global, person and estate, or person only, or estate only.
We get denials, like we'll send in applications to them and they'll come back and we'll get denials sometimes because it's supposed to be a program of last resort. So if there are family members
Yes.
that can step in and take that role, they're gonna want to explore those options first before the help guardian agrees.
Yeah, it's not on here, but the statute does say that they're age 16 over and there's no one else ready, willing, or able to stand in as the conservator or guardian.
So I think when I've had that situation where it's like two sisters fighting, but neither of them are the best choice or
Right.
even a remotely good choice,
Mhm.
then I've had a couple of cases where the judge has said, I will appoint so-and-so as conservative of the person, but I'm going to appoint Agent Commissioner Mid-South as conservative of the estate for these various reasons, because they don't qualify, or the court believes it's not in the person's disabilities best interest.
And that's acceptable if we have situations where that happens. And then courts, can appoint us to all sorts of different things and we get all sorts of types of orders across the state, which we're working really hard to try and standardize. So if you can put some bugs in your private attorney's ears about these orders, there are certain things that need to be in them. It's really kind of interesting. If the court gives us the ability to, be over someone's estate, that needs to be set forth in that order of conservancy. So, yeah, it's kind of varies. We're working really hard to standardize it, but you have to remember it's not just the public guardian program. We do have retainer counsel, but they don't always draft those final orders, those appointment orders.
Well, you can be sure that your retainer counsel in Memphis will eat my order up every time.
Yes. And I'm sorry, private attorneys, but I love to hear that because that means she's making sure that the information and the the statements that her public guardians need in those orders. So that's great. That doesn't happen all across the state though. All right. Department of Human Services, we've talked about them. Adult Protective Services, we talked about those guys this morning. Commerce and Insurance, Division of Consumer Affairs. You can refer folks who have been a victim of a scam to Commerce and Insurance Consumer Affairs if they've been scammed by an individual, not necessarily a corporate entity. You can file a complaint online, and you will have access to that in this presentation as well. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, we talked about on this morning when we talked about other entities that would investigate wrongdoing in a facility. They have a unit called the Mathuku unit. Anyway, you can say it really badly and really wrong. And they do that, and they do that on purpose. But anyway, but they can look at cases involving fraud and patient abuse, and it's dealing with Medicaid funding. So every year they help, and they do prosecute some folks. It has to involve Medicaid funding, so keep that in mind. They're not going to investigate every single instance of abuse, neglect, or exploitation in a long-term care facility. If there is some fraud involved, patients were, Medicaid was charged for care that the patient didn't receive, that's the case they might be interested in. And they do assess some fines. They recover millions of dollars a year. This is from them. Tennessee Human Rights Commission, complaints about from Tennessee citizens who believe they've experienced discrimination. You can always send them to the Human Rights Commission if you need to. It's a good place to start. They have a huge case log, but they're really good folks over there, and they really work hard to get those cases, in process within all the time limits that they have. Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. They have several programs, including the ECF program, which some of your clients may qualify for, may not. It's the new, there's no longer a DIDS waiver program for folks that qualify for it and need services as a younger adult. They now have something called ECF, which is Employment and Community First. We do have a couple of seniors every now and then who are actually able to get on that program. For most of your folks, Choices is going to be the better option, but for some of your folks, some of your disabled clients, it might be something to explore. So just know that it exists. Please don't ask me a lot of details about it. It's relatively new, and I have been through several presentations about it, but it's a very, very, very rule and regulation based program, just like everything TennCare does. You can pull the rules and regs and kind of take a look at them if you have questions. And seating and positioning clinics, just keep that in mind. If you have someone who has a wheelchair and they're having trouble getting it fit to themselves, if you call DIDS, they actually have a van. They will come out to that individual and help them with that seating and positioning. So, you might have one client a year who might be able to benefit from that resource, but just know that it exists. Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, they have a crisis line where you can send folks who are having mental health problems and mental health concerns. It is a 24/7, so it's a true hotline and not a helpline. And they also have a concern line if you have relatives or friends or family of folks who have mental health concerns, can call the second number. They also have housing. I didn't know this until very, very recently, is they have a huge housing department and work really hard to try and get folks in housing. So if you have someone with a mental health diagnosis and you're looking for some housing, I would definitely call the 800, the second 800 number to see if they might qualify for that. Tennessee Housing Development Agency, I brought them up, put them up there because they do provide some funding in a lot of areas to do home modifications and to do home repairs. If you have someone with a roof that is leaking, it's possible they can access funds through this THDA, the Tennessee Housing Trust Fund, and the Weatherization Assistance Program help folks. And also, just know you guys have gotten funding through Senior Trust, Elder Trust. There's a housing projects that have also been funded through Senior Trust, Elder Trust, Habitat for Humanity in Memphis and Westminster Home Connection out of Nashville, and they're both covering about 40 to 50 counties and doing home modification projects for seniors and home repair projects. Just keep that in mind. On our website, Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, tn.gov/TCAD, /aging, I'm sorry, you will also find, we have a separate page for the Senior Trust grants. And as we get contact information on who to contact at Habitat for Humanity in Memphis and who to contact at Westminster, we will have that information available to you, so you'll be able to send referrals over to them. Property tax relief programs, the information is there. Kind of a mixed bag on that one, but for what it's worth, the information is available. Board for Licensing of Healthcare Facilities, fantastic, I did include it. So this is where you're gonna call if you have a complaint about a long-term care nursing home, and it's a long-term care facility, and it's a complaint about what that facility itself is actually doing. They're the folks that are gonna handle that because they license them. Disability Rights Tennessee, please utilize them. They can help folks with disabilities for legal issues. They do occasionally handle involuntary discharge appeals. Just help them walk through one of those fairly recently. For a client that I've dealt with, I think since the second day I started as a state ombudsman, and who has been with the ombudsman program for about, how long has he been in a nursing home? 18 years now. He's been our client for about 18 years. So he's very well known to us, and we were able to try and work something out through that voluntary discharge appeal. Yes, ma'am. He's not in West Tennessee, but yeah.
Don't, thank goodness.
Yes.
Don't hesitate to call them.
Yeah.
If your client is disabled and there is a legal issue, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel and
Correct.
do all that legal research, they probably have already done it.
Yes. And they're very generous in helping and providing resources. And yeah. And they have they have attorneys on staff. Their new legal director used to work over at DIDS. So she knows all about the disabled side of the law. Maybe they're learning a little bit more about the elder side, but they're very well versed in the DIDS world.
Who is that person?
Susan Mee. She came on board, I think, with DRT about 6 months ago. Transportation. Transportation is always a huge concern. So much like you guys got senior trust funding, there was also a transportation project funded. Again, you can access that through that 1866 number for the area agencies. And through the Senior Trust Transportation Project, there will be 10 new volunteer transportation programs starting across the state of Tennessee from now for the next 3 years. So there'll be 30 total that will be instituted. It's my understanding that grant is up and running and they picked the first 10 that will be started. You guys in Jackson had My Ride, so very similar to My Ride is what they're looking at expanding all across the state.
They're having problems getting volunteers.
Yes,
So
please
if-
plug volunteers.
So if you know somebody that has a car and wants to do some volunteer work, it's only about 3 hours a week max.
And you usually get the same clients. It's my understanding they try to keep the same driver and client together. So you form bonds and relationships, and it's great. I know our assistant executive director recently retired, and she has started driving for one of the senior volunteer assistance programs, transportation programs. So it's really a neat option. So, and here are the ones that already exist. If you're in East Tennessee, Blount County Smiles, My Ride West Tennessee, and Senior Ride Nashville if you're here in the Nashville, Davidson County area. My Senior Ride Nashville only covers certain parts of Davidson County, just FYI. Transportation map, we have a really cool resource on our website. You click on this map and you can hover over your county and it will pull up the programs that will provide rides to seniors. So utilize it, please. We spent a lot of time getting that together. We've already talked about Help for TN, free legal answers. You guys know that. All the legal aids. Thank you all very much for what you do. You are included. 10 care choices. Aging and disability, if you want to talk to us directly. Tennessee Justice Center is there. So let's talk about this very briefly, and that will be it. If you don't know where to start looking for resources for someone, we have a page called, on the TCAD webpage called Assess Your Needs. You can put in the zip code and the distance in miles that you want to find the resources, and then we have a listing of about 100 or 150 different types of resources. You click the checkbox, you hit search, and it will pop up the resources within the zip code you've specified and the number of miles you've specified. Okay, and there's the link. But if you're in Lake County and you want to know what kind of resources are there, if you're in Sullivan County or Carter County or Greene County, or I'm just mentioning all the ones up there, sorry. In any counties in the state of Tennessee, including Davidson, sorry Davidson, you can go to this, plug it in. We have someone whose sole job is to update this database, so it's very comprehensive. He gets all these senior directories, senior guides, and senior directories that are published. There's one published in Davidson County for Middle Tennessee. I was in Knoxville yesterday, and Susan Long was there with their Council on Aging senior directory. We take those and we type them into the database. So word for word from those published events, published documents. We also add other resources. Since we've had the CREBA program, we've added domestic violence shelters, we've added sexual assault centers, we've added family justice centers, we've added lots of other resources that we didn't necessarily have for victims of crime as well. So I encourage you to make use of this. It will be much more comprehensive than what we've gone through today, but it will give local resources if you're looking for local resources. Coming soon, we've seen your legal hotline. I need to change that. Bank safe, we talked about this morning. Questions? Since again, I'm standing between you all and getting out of here. Questions, comments, concerns? Did I miss anything? Is there anything that we should include that we didn't include? If you think about something later, yes, Matt.
Sorry, this might be that question to ask, but who do you call about unlicensed facilities?
So that's a very good question.
I don't know. I don't know
So there is a question as to who has jurisdiction over unlicensed facilities. The Department of Health says that they don't because they're unlicensed, right? And they only have jurisdiction over licensed facilities. Ombudsman can only go into licensed facilities. Law enforcement technically do, and they can padlock facilities, which they've done in Memphis, but it just takes showing up in court and getting that can be undone in about 12 hours. So it is a huge debate. The short answer is we don't know, and there is really no one. It is something that we're working on. APS got a grant recently to do a coordinated response to elder abuse, and we're going around the state. And I said I was in Knoxville yesterday. We're going around the state to talk about that grant and talk about some of the issues, and one of them is unlicensed facilities and what to do with them and do about them. One of their goals of that grant is to find a way to identify these facilities and remediate the facilities, be that helping them get licensed if they're a good facility and providing great services, and if they're not, to kind of, to the opposite of that would be to close them down, right? If they're abusing elders and having, doing all kinds of terrible things. It's something that's a work in progress. I don't have an answer for you. I would call Adult Protective Services first and try that, make the complaint, do the paper trail. Know that all of those complaints, they generate what's called a 1215. Those are all going to the VAPIT teams now. So you have law enforcement and the district attorneys looking at those complaints as well as Adult Protective Services, even the ones that APS screens out. So I would start there. If it continues, Rachel's not here, but there's a facility in her area that we've been making complaints. I've been with the state 5 years. We've been making complaints about it 4 or 5 years. Now, finally, the Department of Mental Health, who licenses the facility, is in the process of taking some type of action against it because it's been that bad. It's so bad that the owners are power of attorney for some of the residents. So, yeah. So there are movements afoot to try and deal with this problem. But you also have low-income seniors who really have no other place to go, so it's a balancing act. So, again, another long answer. Any other questions? All right. Did I end? It is exactly 3:10. I said I would share my email address earlier. If you want it, there it is. It's pretty simple. I do try and respond to email, phone calls, a little more difficult.